Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Carla Cooks. Watch as I take this inexpensive cut of pork butt and turn into a rich and herby delight known as porchetta. This is one of Italy's most famous pork dishes, and you can use this porchetta recipe if you want a rich and tender meat main dish that doesn't skimp on flavor, let me tell you. On the night of serving, you can dress it up atop a smear of polenta and have a perfect holiday dinner. And then the next day you can have leftover porchetta sandwiches that are just as delectable. So let's get started. I first take 3 tablespoons of fennel seeds and I grind them in a spice grinder until finely ground. You can also use a mortar and pestle for this part of the recipe. And then I transfer the ground fennel to a food processor and add half a cup of fresh rosemary leaves, which is about 2 bunches, a quarter cup of fresh thyme leaves, which is about 2 bunches, and 12 garlic cloves that have just been peeled. So not chopped, they can be whole because they're going to get processed. I also add 1 tablespoon of pepper and 2 teaspoons of salt. And I just pulse the mixture until finely chopped, about 10 to 15 pulses. And this is where I go ahead and add a half a cup of extra virgin olive oil. This is going to make the paste. This is going to go all over and inside the pork. And as you can tell, it doesn't skimp on flavor. There's plenty of flavor in this. So you just want to add oil until a paste forms. You still want a little bit of chunkiness to it. This is a 5 to 6 pound boneless pork butt roast that's been trimmed. It still has a little bit of its fat cap. Using a sharp knife, I'm cutting slits in the surface fat of the roast, spaced about 1 inch apart in a cross-hatch pattern, being careful not to cut through the meat at all. So you just want to cut right through that fat cap. And this is a fairly inexpensive cut of meat. Feeds a lot of people. So this whole portion, this 5 to 6 pounder, I think I got a 5.6 pound cut and it was about $21. So it's definitely a good investment if you want to feed a lot of people but not spend a ton of money. And then I cut the roast in half with the grain into 2 equal pieces. And we want to do it with the grain so that when we slice into it, it will be against the grain, the pieces that we'll actually eventually eat. Working with 1 roast at a time, I turn each roast on its side so the fat cap is facing away from me and the bottom of the roast is facing towards me and the newly cut side is facing up. And starting about 1 inch from the short end of the roast, I use a boning knife to make slits that start 1 inch from the top of the roast and end 1 inch from the bottom. So we're not going all the way through, and this is what gives it that lovely spiral look because we will put some paste in there. You should have about 6 to 8 slits depending on the size of your roast. So I'm just pressing my finger through to make sure they went all the way through, and I'm going to go ahead and do the next roast. So now I turn it so the fat cap is facing down and I rub the sides and the bottom of each roast with 2 teaspoons of salt, taking care to work the salts into the slits and all the sides. And really be generous, don't worry about putting too much salt on here, it's a big cut. I then take the herb paste and rub the herb paste onto the sides and bottom of each roast. And I take care to work some paste into the slits on both sides. And this is what gives it that lovely spiral look when you cut into it. There's really no delicate way to do this. It's not fancy, it's very messy, but just know you're gonna make a little bit of a mess. I then take 3 pieces of kitchen twine per roast, so 6 in all. And I tie each roast into like a compact cylinder. This is to give it nice shape so it cooks a little more evenly. And I know one of my roast sides is bigger than the other. That's okay. We can always cook one longer than the other based on its internal temperature. And we do want our fat cap to face up at this point. I then take one more mixture of 1 tablespoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of pepper, and a 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and I rub the fat cap of each roast, taking care to work the mixture into the cross hatches this time. And what this does, it not only flavors it, but the baking soda, it raises the pH level and it makes the fat more alkaline, so then you get better browning. It helps give it that crispy texture. My roasts are already on a wired rack set in a baking sheet. And I'll go ahead and pop this whole thing in the fridge uncovered for at least 6 hours and up to 24 hours. And that's it, it's ready to go in the fridge. When getting ready to bake, I adjust my oven rack to the middle position and heat the oven to 325 degrees. I'll also transfer the roasts to a large roasting pan, leaving at least 2 inches between the roasts. And again, fat side up, cover tightly with aluminum foil. And I cook these roasts until the pork registers 180 degrees. So that takes about 2 to 2.5 hours at this low and slow temperature. After the roasts have reached 180 degrees, I remove the pan from the oven and increase the oven temperature to 500 degrees. And at this point, there's semi-color. It's not the golden brown delicious stage yet. I'm just removing the twine so the kitchen twine doesn't burn. I discard all this liquid in the pan. And I also want to line the pan with foil. At this point, the roasts are ready to go back into the oven, the 500-degree oven. And this is the stage where the roast will get a lot of color. And we cook until the roasts are well brown and the interior registers about 190 degrees. And that'll take like 20 to 30 minutes, depending on how big your roasts are. I let them rest for 20 minutes on the cutting board. And here's slicing time. I slice the roasts about a ½ inch thick and transfer to a serving platter. And look, you can see how golden brown delicious. You can see the spiral of flavor inside. This roast really has it all. It's the perfect choice if you want to feed a lot of people and you don't want to break the bank, but you want something that's still rich and tender and moist. It is mouth-wateringly good. And that's it, another incredible recipe from Carla Cooks. Be sure to like and subscribe and share the recipe with friends. You can find the recipe on my blog at carlacooks.com. Enjoy.